problems of life. Just like you're not going to escape the rain. You know, the rain's going to come and the rain's going to get you. It's going to rain. Troubles of life are also going to be there. However, the practice of Krishna Bhakti teaches us detachment and how to take real shelter. And that is like carrying an umbrella in the rain. So although it rains, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have to get wet. So these teachings of the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna gives Arjuna teaches us how to navigate through life. So all the troubles, the ups and the downs, the ebbs and the flows. But while we're in those difficult conditions, it teaches us how to carry our Krishna conscious umbrella so that although those things are there, we're not so affected. Little rain story. Thank you, Prabhu. Chant Jayarada Madhava. Actually, Prabhu, can I have the Varanga and something like that? Thank you. You can give the card down. You take the card down. I'm sorry. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Anantakoti Vaishnava Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Spaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Giraha Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham ki, Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki, Jagannath Puri Dham ki, Ganga Maya ki, Yamuna Maya ki, Bhakti Devi ki, Tulsi Devi ki, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki, Transcendental Book Distribution ki, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki, Nitai Gaura Premanande, all glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Kricharine Nirvishesha Shunyavani Paschatya Deshataya. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
So I wanted to just quickly mention, while I was at Rath Yatra last week, I was out in the sun for 2 days and I didn't put any sunscreen on. So I got a really bad sunburn. So my lips, lips are a really weird thing to get sunburn on, but I get sunburn on my lips. So I have these blisters that I'm dealing with. So please forgive my appearance. But that's what happened to me. But in general, how did everybody feel with Rath Yatra? Everybody felt very good? It was a very, very, very wonderful day. A lot of people received Krishna's blessings that day, either through seeing Lord Jagannath directly, being able to pull Lord Jagannath's chariot, receiving some prasadam. Around 5,000 plates of prasadam were distributed, receiving transcendental knowledge through Srila Prabhupada's books, chanting the holy names in the kirtan. Seeing some of the theatrical performances that were put on and the messages that were given in those. So many ways of just meeting a devotee or just passing by and hearing. They say there's ways that you can actually unknowingly perform devotional service. It's called a gyata sukriti. Right? So Lord Jagannath is situated in the middle of the oval. And what happens in the oval is people drive around it. Right? So unknowingly, people are circumambulating Lord Jagannath. Yeah. That is the power of bhakti and devotional service.
Yeah.
Right? So today we are continuing our study of the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and we'll be talking a little bit about the process of yoga, Stanga yoga, which is defined in Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter. I'll chant through this, and there's actually a verse preceding this, which I'll also read, but I want to read through this purport, and then we'll read everything together. I'll chant, and then please repeat, and then you can get a chance to chant as well. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Sabam Kaya Shiro Grivam.
Sankaya Chirogrivam.
Daryayan Achalam Striya.
Dharyanan Achalam Sriya.
Samprakesha Nashkagram Swam.
Samprikshya Naskriyam Swam.
Dishaschano Valokayan.
Diksha Jano Lokayan.
Prashant Atma Vigatbir.
Prasanatma Vigatbhir.
Brahmachari Vrateshtita.
Brahmachari Brite Stita.
Manasamyamya Machito.
Manasamyamya Machito.
Yukta Asita Matpara.
Yukta Asita Matpara.
Samam kaya shiro grivam.
Samam kaya chirogrivam.
Dharayan achalam striya.
Dharayan achalam striya.
Samprakesha naskigram swam.
Samprekshya nastakam swam.
Dishaschana valokayan.
Diksha chana lokayan.
Prasantatma vigatpir.
Prasannatma bhigatvir.
Brahmachari vrateshtita.
Brahmachari brite stita.
Manasam yamya machito.
Manasam yamya machito.
Yukta asita matpara.
Yukta asita matpara.
Anybody like to chant? I'm trying.
Samam kaya shiro grivam.
Samam kaya chirogrivam.
Samprakeshya nasikagram swam.
Samprakeshya nasika swam.
Dishaschana valokayan.
Dishachana malokayan.
Prashantatma vigatavir.
Prasantatma vigatavir.
Brahmachari vrate stita.
Brahmachari brite stita.
Manasam yamya machitta.
Manasam yamya machito.
Yukta asit matpara.
Yukta asita matpara. Samam kaya chirogrivam.
Samam kaya shiro grivam.
Dharayan achalam striya.
Dharayan achalam shriya.
Samprekshya nasticagriham swam.
Samprakesha nasticagram swam.
Disascha navalokayan.
Dishaschana valokayan.
Prasantatma vigatavira.
Prasantatma vigatavira.
Brahmachari varte stitaha.
Brahmachari vrateshtita.
Manaha samyamya machito.
Manasam yamya machito.
Yukta asita matparaha.
Yukta asita matpara. Samam kaya shiro grivam. Dharayan achalam striya. Samprekshya nasticagram swam. Dishaschana valokayan.
Prasantatma vigatavir.
Brahmachari vrateshtita. Manasam yamya machito. Yukta asita matpara. Okay, the synonyms are word for word. Samam, straight.
Samam, straight.
Kaya,
Kaya,
body.
body.
Shriyaha,
Sriyaha,
head.
head.
Grivam,
Grivam,
and neck.
neck.
Dharyan,
Dharyan,
holding.
holding.
Achalam,
Achalam,
unmoving. Stiraha,
Stiraha,
still.
straight.
Samprakesha,
Samprakesha,
looking.
looking.
Nasika,
Nasika,
of the nose.
of the nose.
Agram,
Agram,
at the tip.
at the tip.
Swan,
Swam,
on. Dishaha,
Disaha,
on all sides.
on all sides.
Cha,
Cha,
anavalokayan,
Anavalokayan,
not looking.
not looking.
Prasanta,
Prasanta,
unagitated.
unagitated.
Atma,
Atma,
mind.
mind.
Vigitavir,
Vigata bhi.
Devoid of fear.
Devoid of fear.
Brahmachari vrate.
Brahmachari vrate.
In the vow of celibacy.
In vow of celibacy.
Sthitaha.
Sthitaha.
Situated.
Situated.
Mana.
Mana.
Mind.
Mind.
Samyamya.
Samamya.
Completely subduing.
Completely subduing.
Mat.
Mat.
Upon me. Krishna.
Upon me.
Upon me, Krishna.
Chittaha.
Chitaha.
Concentrating the mind.
Concentrating the mind.
Yuktaha.
Yukta.
The actual yogi.
The actual yogi.
Asita.
Asita.
Should sit.
Should sit.
Mat.
Mat.
Me.
Me.
Para.
Para.
The ultimate goal.
The ultimate goal.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line. Every time I read this, it makes me straighten up my posture. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free of sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. Purport. The goal of life is to know Krishna, who is situated within the heart of every living being as Paramatma, the four-handed Vishnu form. The yoga process is practiced in order to discover and see this localized form of Vishnu, and not for any other purpose. The localized Vishnu Murti is the plenary representation of Krishna dwelling within one's heart. One who has no program to realize this Vishnu Murti is uselessly engaged in a mock yoga practice and is certainly wasting his time. We'll unpack that statement a little bit later. Krishna is the ultimate goal of life, and the Vishnu Murti situated in one's heart is the object of yoga practice. To realize this Vishnu Murti, which means the form of Vishnu, within the heart, one has to observe complete abstinence from sex life. Therefore, one has to leave home and live alone in a secluded place, remaining seated as mentioned above. One cannot enjoy sex life daily at home or elsewhere and attend a so-called yoga class and thus become a yogi. One has to practice controlling the mind and avoiding all kinds of sense gratification, of which sex is the chief. In the rules of celibacy written by the great sage Yajnavalkya, it is said, Karmana manasa vacha sarvas dashu sarvada sarvatra maitunya tvago brahmacharyam prachakshate. The vow of brahmacharya is meant to help one completely abstain from sex indulgence in work, words, and mind at all times, under all circumstances, and in all places. One can perform correct yoga No one can perform correct yoga practice through sex indulgence. Brahmacharya is taught, therefore, from childhood, when one has no knowledge of sex life. Children at the age of 5 are sent to a gurukula, or a place of the spiritual master, and the master trains the young boys in strict discipline of becoming brahmacharis. Without such practice, no one can make advancement in any yoga, whether it be dhyana, jnana, or bhakti. One who, however, follows the rules and regulations of married life, having a sexual relationship only with his wife, and that is also under regulation, is also called a brahmachari. Such a restrained householder, this is important here in differentiating between the two different schools of yoga and bhakti. Such a restrained householder brahmachari may be accepted in the Bhakti school, but in the Jnana and Jnana schools, they do not admit householder brahmacharis. They require complete abstinence without compromise. In the Bhakti school, a householder brahmachari is allowed controlled sex life because the code of Bhakti Yoga is so powerful that one automatically loses sexual attraction, being engaged in the superior service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 2:59 it is said, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjam rasopiyasya param drisva nivartate. Whereas others who are forced to restrain themselves from sense gratification, a devotee of the Lord automatically refrains because of a superior taste. Other than a devotee, no one has any information of that superior taste. Vigata B. One cannot be fearless unless one is fully in Krishna consciousness. A conditioned soul is fearful due to his perverted memory, his forgetfulness of his eternal relationship with Krishna. The Bhagavatam 11.2.37 says, Vayam tviti ya bini veshtitaha swa ishad apitasya viparayo smritihi. Krishna consciousness is the only basis of fearlessness. Therefore, perfect practice is possible for a person who is Krishna conscious. And since the ultimate goal of yoga, practice, is to see the Lord within, a Krishna conscious person is already the best of the yogis. The principles of yoga system mentioned herein are different from those of the popular so-called yoga societies. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master has opened my darkened eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So, this was one verse, and there's a verse before that, which I want to read as well. And then we'll kind of go through it. I want to get a sense for the challenges. And Arjuna also understood the challenges when Krishna explained this to him. Krishna's conclusion was, what you've explained to me, Krishna, I think is unendurable, and I don't think I can do it. There has to be an easier way to get to know you. So let's remember these here. This is the two verses before. I'll say a couple words, then you repeat, and this way it'll sink in a little bit. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place.
One should go to a secluded place
And should lay kusha grass on the ground.
and should lay kusa grass on the ground.
And then cover it with a deerskin and soft cloth.
And then cover it with the deer skin and the cloth.
The seat should be neither too high nor too low,
The seat should not be neither too high nor too low,
and should be situated in a sacred place.
and should be situated in a sacred place.
The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind.
The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling the mind.
Senses and activities,
Senses and activities,
and fixing the mind on one point.
and fixing the mind on one point.
Okay? And then what we read earlier, we'll reread that. One should hold one's body, neck, and head
One should hold one's body, neck and heart
erect in a straight line
erect in a straight line
and stare steadily at the tip of the nose.
and stare steadily at the tip of the nose.
Thus,
Thus,
with an unagitated, subdued mind,
with an unagitated, subdued mind,
devoid of fear,
devoid of fear,
completely free from sex life.
completely free from sex life.
One should meditate upon me within the heart
One should meditate upon me within the heart
and make me the ultimate goal of life.
and make me the ultimate goal of life.
Sounds pretty complicated, huh? So let's go through this a little bit. Put together a little, for my aid and maybe to help everyone understand as well. Let's see if it's up there. You see that?
Yep.
Oops. Let me just get out of this real quick. Slideshow. Okay. So Krishna's description of the Estaba yoga process, and this goes really from text number 10 through 17. It's a whole section where Krishna explains the qualities of the yogi. So one of the things that we heard about is that in order to become a yogi, you have to reside in a secluded place, rahasi. And this is important because the goal of yoga is to control the mind activity. And the mind is the center of all desires. Before it becomes manifest in physical form, it starts with a desire from the mind. So if you're in a place that is very distracting, naturally the mind is just going to become all over the place. It's going to be agitated, it's going to be disturbed. And to control the mind in a place that is very busy, and where the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance are constantly racing through us, mostly it's passion and ignorance, it becomes very difficult. And in order to become a successful yogi, the mind, it can't be compromised. It has to be controlled. We learned earlier in this verse, weeks ago, that the one who controls the mind, one who can control the mind is the best of friends. But the uncontrolled mind becomes the worst of enemies. So a yogi has to make that as part of their strategy, is to really control his mind. So going to a secluded place naturally helps one erase all those influences that come, that stimulus that we see. What are some of those things? Hasn't gone off yet, but a cell phone, I'm guaranteed will go off sometime before the night's over. So modern day, we have our cell phones, right? Distractions. And what our cell phones tell us? Friends are writing us, how you doing? Where are you going to be later tonight? Or the scores of the football game pop up. Or the news comes up about, what's going on in the election. Or we get those Snapchats, or we get little things, people, TikTok videos of people showing what they did earlier today. And these are all things that get our mind engaged and really pulled in. Going to a secluded place is also necessary because it frees us from all the distractions of life. What we call everyday life, and this is something that's actually important to think about. Sometimes there's times to pause and actually realize, what are those things in life that really cause us distraction from asking the questions and executing a life of self-realization? Now we probably call this life, right? We've got our families and our family obligations. You gotta take the kids to school, you gotta wake up, you gotta go food shopping, you gotta, bills don't pay for itself, so you gotta go to work. And then boss has certain demands on us, right? And then sometimes it's a good day, sometimes it's a bad day, right? Right? And then, you don't just pop into work, you gotta drive to work. But the car you drive, you have to put gas in it. Sometimes the gas prices go up, sometimes they go down. There's politics, whether they go up or they go down. And every year, you gotta get a car inspected. And when you go to get your car inspected, they always tell you what's wrong with it. You owe a couple $1,000 to keep driving it. So you got all these things, and you got your family, you got the kids' activities, the orthodontist, the dentist, the parents that are getting older, they're getting sick, you gotta take them to an appointment. And at the end of the day, you call somebody up and you just say, what did you do today? And you tell them. And that's life. Right? And then life goes by day after day, month after month, year after year. And we settle in that this is life. So, for what's being described here as a person who is focused on yoga, they have to renounce all that. And they have to go alone. Not with any memories, not with any type of entourage or disciples or people to cook for them. They're going in all alone to a place that's secluded and sacred. So places along the Ganges, the Yamuna River, there's hermitages that are set up and caves that are set up where a person can go and they can remove themselves from all of society. Now today you may actually go for a retreat there, and you may pay a lot of money and you're there for a day or two or a week or two or a couple of days and you say, wow, that was a good experience, now I gotta go back to life again. But for a yogi, they get fixated with that. You have a question back there. Or you have your hand raised, you'd like to make some comment.
How do you achieve that with children?
Right.
I just asked, as a single mother, it's something I've been trying to achieve for a while, but I just don't know how to do that with kids.
So you can't do it with children, that's the thing. Because one of the steps is that one actually must be free of possessions. And children are one of our possessions. And that's why it says that one must take a vow of Dronacharya, which means a vow of celibacy, in order to do that. So it's very, again, we're talking about something that Krishna describes, which is very, very difficult. But there is hope, because this is not, there is an answer to it, and we'll get to that toward the end. This is just a type of spiritual practice that is being defined. And specifically, it's being defined in comparison to the yoga that we see in the cities. Now, this is nothing against the yoga people, because there's a lot of nice people, very wonderful people that are spiritually minded, that do yoga, and actually yoga is the process that actually got them connected to their self. How many people here, practice yoga? Got Dr. Lenny right here. He came from Yoga in Maine, and Shiva Das. He's a good friend of ours. Chaitanya Jivan, a wonderful yoga studio. Bhakti Caitlin, Raghunath, up at Super Soul. He's opened up the doors to so many people through the process of yoga. When the point is being made here is that it's a lot more complicated than what you may think. And as it's outlined from Patanjali, who codified the Yoga Sutras, it was spoken about a lot longer before this. Krishna was spoken about in the Gita before Patanjali came. Patanjali put this in, codified it into the Yoga Sutras. It's a lot more complicated. And if one wants to truly be a yogi, he has to take these steps. So some of the things that were mentioned, you have to, step one, you have to lay down what type of grass? It was kusha grass. So it's a firm type of grass. It's a little bit spiky, it's a very firm type of grass. You also lay down, so you want a stable seat. It can't be either too high nor too low. So it has to be a stable seat. And then you lay a deer skin down. Anybody know why there's a deer skin?
Yeah.
Put down? Let's see if somebody else knows.
Side of the road. You get it on the side of the road.
That's where you get a deer skin. But do you know why you would use a deer skin?
Keep the bugs away.
What?
Bugs away.
So bugs away. But if you're going out into the wilderness and you want to be fearless, what do you have to worry about? So bugs are one of them, but bugs are more like a nuisance. Tigers, reptiles, snakes. So if you have a seat that's a little bit higher, it's harder for the snake to get to you. But they have a natural repellent in the skin. The deer skin has a natural repellent for reptiles.
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada talked about this in a lecture in 1969, where he broke this down, and he said that they have a natural repellent in it. So these are some of the things that a yogi has to go through. So yoga in the city, which we commonly hear about, a lot of different yoga studios, and some of them are spiritually minded, and some of them are really just more fitness related. And it all depends which one you go to. But the reason why Srila Prabhupada kind of spoke about it's really not going to help you too much spiritually if you want to become a yogi in true essence. He's really just following Krishna's prescription in the Bhagavad Gita. And the first couple steps in yoga are oftentimes not a requirement for entering into the practice of yoga. Yoga, for the most part, there's a certain business component to it, right? You go to a yoga class, you pay your $20, $25, $15, whatever it is, and you may do your vinyasa flow, or you may do a different type of yoga with different postures. This here on the right hand side, are the 8 steps of yoga: yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. But the first 2 are the prerequisites for even getting into the meditation. And this isn't often talked about. Well, it's not a prerequisite, obviously, to take a yoga class. But Krishna says it is a prerequisite that if you are going to sit down and meditate upon the self. So those yama and niyamas are the do's and the don'ts, which makes one both internally and externally clean. Ahimsa, non-violence. So we know this to be vegetarian, eating food that is not a violent food. And also acting in a non-violent way. Not stealing. Truthfulness, speaking words of truth, not lying, not being deceitful. Non-possessiveness. Being content with what you have. And then, of course, Dronacharya, celibacy. And then the niyamas, things that we should do, cleanliness, contentment, performing tapasya, some discipline, swadhyaya, studying for self-realization, reading books and literature that help one identify oneself as a spirit soul, and surrendering to a higher power. So these things are oftentimes neglected, but are at the core value. They're at the foundation. They're at the bottom of the pyramid. And oftentimes it's just jumped into part 3 and 4, which is the bodily exercises and the breathing exercises, which can be very beneficial physically. Have you ever taken a yoga class or done some pranayama? Have you felt better or worse when you were done? Right? Better, right? So it works. It's a science that works. But if you're looking for the goal, which when you get down to part 6, 7, and 8, which is a deep meditation, without a controlled mind, which comes from the purity of living, Krishna says, it's not going to work. Which gets back to your question. What is your name again? I'm sorry. Ani. Ani. Ani's question is, well, how do you do that if you have a family? It becomes very, very difficult. But there is a type of yoga that you can practice, where one has a family. And we'll get to that in just a moment. So our asana is important. When you look at it comprehensively through the yoga ladder, the Eightfold Yoga System, they're part 3. So as you look at it as a ladder, you can't just take out some rungs. You can't just, if you're climbing a ladder to the top, you just can't say, okay, we're going to just not do this rung or that rung. You have to step on each rung to get up there. So we hear in these verses, how does one have to hold one's body? Anybody remember?
Erect with a straight line.
Dr. David he did what I said, and as I hear that, you sit up like this. You have to, the body and neck and head should be erect and in a straight line. It's very difficult to do, right? I'll do it for like 10 seconds, then I'll slouch down again, up again, and slouch down again, slouch down again. Sometimes I hear Srila Prabhupada, if you listen to him chanting japa, he'll say, sit properly, because posture matters. As soon as you start to lounge, get back like this. If you ever try chanting like japa or doing any type of meditation where you're like laying on a couch or you're just kind of like, it really doesn't work. You know, you need a good seat, you need an asana. It could be a chair, it could be a cushion, but you need something to help you with your posture, because posture also affects the breath and also affects the mind. All these things are connected together. So the postures, bring one to bodily strength where one can actually sit for a long duration of time and have that concentration of mind where one can actually then go inward. If every 5 seconds you're like, okay, hold on, let me change position here. All right, that's good. All right, hold on, let me switch legs. If you're constantly doing that, focusing for a very long period of time will not be possible. So it plays a very significant role when you connect it to the goal of samadhi. Unagitated, subdued mind. So we leave away all those possessions behind us. Enter into the forest. Devoid of fear and completely free from sex life. Srila Prabhupada wrote in the purport how fear governs a lot of our activities. But fear is due to ignorance. In the first teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, you cannot be killed. Go into battle, but don't fear for your life. And don't fear for the lives of others, because the soul will continue to go on.
Yeah.
When we feel that we own something that can be lost, we fear. Isn't it? But when we understand that actually I'm an eternal spirit soul, and this body will eventually go, whether it's today or tomorrow, and that which I feel belongs to me actually is under the control of time and is the possession of Krishna, then one can become fearless. Abhay Charanaravinda. Fearless by taking shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. That is the way one becomes fearless. So one has to have knowledge to become fearless. And then finally, mystic cities. Yogis are known for developing along this path of the Eightfold Yoga System very strong powers. To be able to control your senses. This is no small thing. To control your mind and your senses. To take a vow of celibacy. And say goodbye to life. You don't see this hardly ever. And when a person, year after year, is living in the cave, waking, going to bed, 12, 15 hours a day, just meditating, you can understand the mental strength that they develop. And with it come these various cities, which are mystical ways of manipulating material nature. One can become smaller than the smallest or bigger than the biggest. One can transform one's body. One can go to a different place on earth. Oops. One can go to computer. So one can go to a different place on earth, right? And actually take an orange and bring it back. Srila Prabhupada told a story about a yogi when he was growing up, and he could walk on the water, and his father and him went to go see and walk on the water. And he said, okay, he walked from one side of the river to the other. And the conclusion was that he was a 2-cent yogi, because even though it was a tremendous feat, but it only took 2 cents to go across the river at that time. So oftentimes yogis, they become very distracted in the yoga practice. So the next part, Jai Ganesh Prabhu, can you bring my other computer? I just have some other slides real quick to warm up, because the next part is our solution. If you can just bring my green one. Yeah. This is some of the complications of life, right? If you're out in the forest and you don't need technology, you don't need a computer, you don't need a phone, you don't need a cord, you don't need power, you just live. You can bring that back. It's a laptop. It's a laptop. It's great. I'm sorry we won't be able to project this up on the screen. I'm not sure why it didn't come up here. But our time is running short, so I'm just going to keep it going. The goal is Krishna. Here we go. It's coming back. Do you want to use this? I think this will be okay. No judgment about my screen, please. All right. Or no judgment zone. Okay, this is going to take a second to come up. Is it up there? Jai Ganesh to the rescue. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so the goal. The goal of yoga was Krishna. So Krishna says, one should meditate upon who? Me. This was in that verse. Me. Within the heart I make who? Me. The ultimate goal of your life. So this is just one process. If one is able to do this, one will achieve the same result as one actually serving Krishna. But it takes a very, very long, hard road. And Krishna is laying this out for Arjuna, just so he can show him the direct path of Bhakti Yoga. Srila Prabhupada says, in the case of the yogi who sees the Lord as Paramatma within the heart, the same applies. Such a yogi turns into a pure devotee and cannot bear to live for a moment without seeing the Lord within himself. So this is where you get to the later stages of the Estaba Yoga process, 6, 7, 8, the Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, or complete absorption. And what are they meditating upon? Krishna, that Vishnu Murti. Vishnu Murti is just a plenary expansion of Krishna that accompanies each and every one of us here into the material world. The qualities of bhakti, I'm going to run through this really quickly because it's important to understand how they compare with one another. Krishna is saying the yogi has to go alone, but we find in devotional service, in the path of bhakti, Krishna is never alone. Even if Krishna is with his cows, or he's with his devotees, or he's with a peacock, or he's always with someone else. That's what you find with Krishna. And Krishna's devotees are also never alone. Now, the word bhaja means to serve, to worship, but it also means to serve, to share. So the isolation which is formed with the yogi is actually achieved in the devotional circles by isolating yourself from bad association and taking on good association. So therefore the isolation is actually much easier to do. You don't have to go to a far distant land. You can actually get the association directly here. Our mind, our body becomes pure by remaining active in Krishna service. So instead of, again, separating yourself from everything, it's the principle of yukta vairagya. How do I engage my senses in serving Krishna, as opposed to negating my senses? And in that way, one can actually have a family. One can actually have regulated sex life, as is stated here, as Srila Prabhupada wrote. How? By having Krishna conscious children. Sex is one of the strongest drives that we have. They actually say anywhere between every 7 seconds and 19 times a day people think about sex. So it's somewhere in that category. It's a very broad range. But the Vedas, they talk about it, meaning that it has very strong implications. So in body, mind, how does one conquer that? By engaging one's senses in the service of Krishna. And one's body and mind becomes purified. So then the other part is, we hear about going to a secluded place, going to Haridwar, going to Rishikesh, going to places along the Ganges, right? But in bhakti, what we find is that devotees actually become the holy place. Maharaj Yudhisthira told Vidura, he says, you are a holy place personified, because wherever you travel, you bring Krishna with you. And therefore you are a place of pilgrimage. So, we see the difference here. So going to a secluded place, the power of bhakti allows you to bring Krishna out. The strength is from Krishna and his association. A yogi strength is through trying to meditate, trying to control the senses. And it's like a monkey carrying their children. Ever see a monkey carrying their child? The child actually holds on. The child monkey holds on to the back of the mother monkey. It's holding on for their strength, with all their strength. There's not very much security there. But in bhakti, it's like a cat carrying a kitten. The kitten it gets picked up in the back by the mother. So Krishna is protecting the devotee. Just has to stay in the service of Krishna. It's not by one's own strength, it's by the mercy of Krishna and his devotees. And then again, it's the most natural quality of the soul. This practice of yoga will take you to a certain level. But what is eternal? What goes beyond this world? It's devotional service to Krishna. So, when Srila Prabhupada concludes that Harinam Sankirtan is the most direct form in this age for realizing ourself and being able to see Krishna for who he is, reawakening our dormant love for God. He compares this to the yoga system. He says, one who is not self-controlled and whose mind is not undisturbed cannot practice yoga and meditation. Therefore, in the Brihad Naradiya Purana, it is said, in Kali Yuga, which is our present age, when people in general are short-lived, slow in spiritual realization, and always disturbed by various anxieties, the best means of spiritual realization is chanting the holy names of the Lord. And that is the blessing that we get when we look at Srila Prabhupada. He brought this philosophy to us. He brought this practice to us and made it so practical and so easy for us to do. Now, if you want to take the path and leave your family, leave all your possessions, there's places in India that you can go and retreat to. It's not going to be recommended, it's going to be very difficult, but you can try it. Or we can engage our senses in the service of Krishna by performing devotional service. We become purified and develop our dormant love for Krishna. We can use our voices to chant Krishna's names. We can use our bodies to dance for the Lord and serve the Lord. We can use our minds to figure out ways in which I can deepen my love and devotion for the Lord. That is the path recommended by Krishna in his most recent incarnation as Lord Chaitanya. He's made so available for us to take advantage of. So we're out of time, I apologize. We're going to begin the arti in just a second. But I'd be more than happy to talk to anybody afterwards. We can discuss this further. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki
Jai.